Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Pixels of Politics. This is episode 59 of season 2. We have a very special episode here today. Cillian Dunne, author of The Right Hand Man, is here to join us and explain his book. He is an author, although I'm not sure that completely gives the justice that he deserves. I almost want to call you a reportive journalist because your book honestly read more. I think it gave more truth about what was going on in Panama at that time period and about Manuel than what I looked up some history of what was going on, and it's nothing compared to what you wrote. You know, it completely doctored and manipulated. So, can you, for the audience, just please introduce yourself in your book?
Yeah, and thank you. I'm Cillian Dunne. I'm definitely author first, but I do some like investigative stories, and the book The Right Hand Man is based on 2 years of sort of investigative research down in Panama. I was living with the right hand man of dictator Manuel Noriega for several months over the course of 2 years. So I would like travel back and forth, and as time went on, I ended up meeting a lot of other members of the dictator's former regime, and I came across and sort of unearthed these files that were once owned by Manuel Noriega. They were in the possession of this guy Jose Hilario Trujillo, who had also written a book, sort of based on the documents, but he actually lived it, so it was a little bit more of a memoir. And then he and I sort of negotiated the use of these documents to back up the book. So what it really did was it just sort of it framed like a new narrative for this entire story, where in the past there was really only one narrative, which is it's cyclical. It's where the US sort of picks a strong man in a foreign nation, they fund them, they build them up, and then they exploit them, they use them, and then when they have no more use for them, they break them, and that's exactly what they did with Noriega. So I just wanted to I wanted to tell firstly like a true story. I wanted it to be entertaining too. I don't know if you guys like, it reads like a spy novel or like a geopolitical thriller. Like it's totally, I did that on purpose because the way like the stories were told to me were just like filled with like so much passion and stuff. I thought it was cool, honestly, but the investigative side of things was really new to me. I was like, basically learning as I went along, like being introduced to all these really crazy people who had lived this like insane history, and I just had to do a lot of research. And I'm sure you guys like fully understand, like when you try peek behind the curtain, or when you like go down the rabbit hole a little bit, like you just see things like completely differently. Like nothing makes sense the way, or like nothing like makes sense the way that it used to, and all that sort of stuff. So I wanted to like reflect that, and yeah, and then The Right Hand Man is what sort of culminated throughout all this time and research.
Yeah, the the
Awesome.
book the book is brilliant. I loved it. I almost cried a little bit at the end just because I couldn't imagine a friendship between Carlos and Manuel, or any friendship that lasts that long, man. That's got to be, I don't know. There's probably not a word for it. Um, and the insights he had on that guy's life. Anyways, sorry.
Mhm.
But you're right. Yeah, peeking behind the curtain just once, I think, opens your eyes to just the fact that everything on the shell it's not true. Like, it's just not true. And the narrative during that time period for Panama itself was it's drug trafficking, right? It's the narco terrorism stuff. And you're right, it's completely cyclical. And I'm glad you said that because we're seeing it again today. Like, literally today, we're seeing the strikes on Venezuelan boats, and we're seeing a lot of narrative pushed around the narco trafficking. And just recently this year, we saw with Panama, this administration threatening to invade them, basically, or use military force to open up the canal again. So, for those who don't know, can you explain kind of the importance of Panama and the canal?
The Panama wouldn't have independence without the US. So in 1903, the US helped Panama gain independence from Colombia. And they did so with the intention of finishing the canal that the French started digging. So the French were like the first to try it out because it's 50 miles from Caribbean coast to Pacific coast. So it's like a very short distance compared to anywhere else in Central America. And so they built it by like I think 1914, something like that. And it became like a huge asset to the US because it's where a lot of their trade passed through, so they very much needed it. Like anything that was coming from Asia and like needed to get to the east coast of the US, or a lot of things coming from Latin America or whatever needing to get to the east coast, it just had to pass through the canal. So by like the time of World War II, the canal is so important to the US that before the Japanese, or like the Japanese were basically deciding whether to bomb Pearl Harbor or to bomb the Panama Canal. I don't know which idea came first, but they were planning to bomb the Panama Canal. I met with a journalist in Panama in September who had just written an article about Japanese spies during World War II along the canal, and they were just like, they were checking out for like weak points and stuff like that because it was a real plan that they really wanted to do. But the only reason they didn't is because it was too far away. They would have had to use, I believe their plan was to use boats with like these float planes on them. So, the planes that can land on water, whatever you call them. But they would have been like attached with like bombs and they would have like used those, which just wouldn't have worked. And that's why they, ultimately didn't go with it. But around that time, intelligence becomes like super important. The CIA is like created in 1947, and they're looking for assets in other countries around the world. And Panama was home to like where the Southern Command is, and then there's also like U.S. Military bases along the canal too. So it's a real hotspot for like U.S. military activity, and also became a hotspot for CIA. And that's how a guy like Noriega became so important because they essentially like hand selected him from like a military academy. And when he became influential in the National Guard, he just became like a huge asset. So the Panama Canal is really just like, it's the heartbeat of like the entire nation. Without it, Panama like wouldn't, Panama is basically a third world country with like a first world city. Like Panama City is pretty vibrant, but like without the canal, it's sort of nothing. And they even have like a banking system there that's very valuable for a lot of people. The whole thing with the Panama Papers and people laundering money through the banking system there. They call it the Switzerland of the Americas. Like that really only exists because of the canal and because of the dictatorships that have happened over the last like few centuries. So Panama is kind of a chaotic place in many ways. It's like the 51st state of the US. Like they use the US dollar. So many Americans there. It's like it's pretty safe. Like it's a great place to go. But it has this like crazy history that is just so chaotic, and it really all just stems back to like the canal, which is nuts. Like the canal, it in many ways it doesn't like precede the country because it didn't fully exist, but like the idea for it started before Panama was even an independent nation. So it's interesting.
Were you familiar? How much of the history of Panama were you familiar with before starting this?
Not like nothing. Yeah, like zero. I basically, I got a phone call about it from my buddy who introduced me to sort of the opportunity. My American buddy, he called me and just said my business partner is a Panamanian guy. He has access to the story. Do you want to talk to him? And I did for like 30 minutes on the phone. I was in LA at the time, and he was sort of just like telling me the Cliff Notes version of like the story. And he's like, "Do you want to come to Panama?" Or he was like, "When can you come to Panama?" And I was like, "I'll be there next week." So I didn't know anything. I had to like learn everything sort of as I went along. I like I learned you learn pretty quickly with this history, like the surface level stuff. I'm sure like you found that it's all like pretty self-explanatory, but then when you start getting into like the all the like espionage stuff and like how Noriega worked with like the cartels and the CIA and like the whole, like American made, like Tom Cruise movie, like that whole deal, like how all that stuff like really happened. It's just fascinating, but so complex. Like, I'll finish up with this, but a journalist in Panama, this famous journalist down there, American journalist called Richard Coster, told me that like this whole story is something that a lot of people know a little about, and it's so true. Like even the people that were directly involved, like they just have such a skewed view of it because nobody was able to experience everything. It was pretty fragmented. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's a story we hear 1,000 times, right? This guy, I think most people now are familiar with the common underlying story of the U.S. backs a dude, he has a coup, or in some ways controlling the country, and then he flips on them, and the U.S. is like, "Oh, that's not very good," and then they invade, right? Like that's just kind of the U.S.'s thing now. We all know it. It happens a lot. Um, but I didn't know that about Panama. I had no idea. And reading your book, I really was like, yeah, this could be a movie. It could be a spy movie. Like it was crazy. You're 100% correct. I guess the most surprising part, there's two surprising parts for me. One was how much influence the DEA has itself. I didn't realize the DEA was like, it is as involved in South America and Latin America as much as the CIA or just
Mossad.
Yeah. Mossad is mentioned more than once.
Whoa, Doug! I didn't say nothing about anything. Okay, you said that, not me. I coughed.
That was going to be the second most surprising thing to me was Mossad is also has lots of influence there, and it was even during was it the 70s or 60s. I couldn't believe it. It's a running theme on our show whenever we investigate anything is that somehow Mossad and Israel's name is mentioned. But yeah, so for you.
Sorry. No, I interrupted you. Sorry, you go ahead.
You're good. I was just going to ask you, what was that surprising to you? Like, not just did you have foreknowledge of Panama and Latin America, but how about the world in general? Like, going in, were you completely raw? Like, you just had no idea how the governments worked or how much influence and control? Was it like mind blowing, or you're like, that makes sense?
I wasn't fully about all that stuff, but like you kind of like mentioned a little bit ago that like government distrust is just so common now. Like everybody, it's everywhere. Like government distrust is in like mainstream media. Like it's everybody feels the sentiment. So I don't think I was surprised by anything. But as for like the intelligence agencies and all that sort of stuff, yeah, I was surprised at first because I didn't know that much about like the agencies or whatever. And I was surprised that Carlos was trained by them, while they would like train a Panamanian soldier. And yeah, but I think that it's all of this was a product of Noriega. Noriega, first of all, yeah, the CIA was prevalent there, but it's because of Noriega. He was just so good at what he did. Like he was such an asset for so long that that's why the CIA like needed him a lot down there. But Noriega understood that like intelligence affected the strength of the nation. So a nation with really strong intelligence would potentially be able to survive longer than one that wouldn't. And Noriega understood this because that's what sort of Fidel Castro did with Cuba. And Noriega was really inspired by Castro. He considered him a friend, and he really like valued his word. Apparently, right? This is what I was told by Carlos. Like I wasn't there, but anyway, he explains the intelligence ties and the number arguably the number one agency in the world is Mossad. Like they're at least they're the ones that scare me the most. And I just think that they just had assets like everywhere, and Noriega was just like someone to use, and he understood that, which is why he was able to like play and be used by so many different people, including like the Medellin cartel, which is like what it all sort of came crashing down to was like his involvement in like narco trafficking and like money laundering and racketeering was the other one, which is nuts. I mean, it's just the whole thing is just like, it's like here or there. It's like it's everywhere. You know what I mean? It's so hard to like pin down.
For sure. I think one of the missing parts, I guess, is the fact that we all also know now, of course, that the CIA used the money or the drugs being trafficked to fund themselves a bit. So it's this double-edged sword for them where they're chasing this guy for trafficking the drugs that they were making money off of. And I just quickly glanced Wikipedia before the show just for fun to see the narrative they had on there. And there's a lot of irony. At the top, they were like, oh, yeah, we're super unbiased. And at the same time, there's no mention of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, oh, yeah, Noriega, he was a dictator and he, trafficked a lot of drugs. He was in bed with the cartels. There's no mention. I mean, they mentioned that he had some ties to some intelligence agencies. They don't mention the details of him being used, by the CIA, right? And then them turning on him. There's no mention of that stuff. So your book, again, was super eye-opening for me. Yeah. Just because of, I mean, it's our back door, like it's our backyard. It's right there. So, you just don't expect, I guess, such a high-level operation to take place right in front of you, and then for everyone to lie about it. When you were going through the paper, everyone's asking about the papers. I think it was like something like 200 papers you had went through, or is 150 or something?
Yeah, the documents that Torrijos had. Yeah.
Where they're... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to sort of explain what they are and stuff. So Torrijos came over to Carlos's apartment one day and he had this big black briefcase and he slams it down on the table and he opens it up and there's like hundreds of these pages in there. He tells me that this is what he used to research his book, and he said that most of these documents, all the letters, were owned by Noriega. So he shows them to me and it's like it's direct correspondence between Noriega and the administrators of the DEA in the year that the letter was sent, right up until like 1987, because he was indicted by the US government in 1988. And these letters, they go back all the way to like the early 1970s. And what it shows is that that the US or the DEA were asking for favors and giving him like enormous gratitude, right? So they were directly telling him that like without his help, the narco trade would be like booming in the US, and obviously it was, but they were telling him that him curbing it sort of where he was in the world was so vital to the overall operation that that they really, like, he was their most important employee or most important asset, to the point where if there's, and this is for like everyone to like watch if they want, but on YouTube you can find a 60 minutes segment on Manuel Noriega where in 1988 or 1987 maybe, 60 minutes interviews Noriega in Panama, and they're in his office, and 8 minutes into the video, Noriega opens up a little black book and it's all the same letters that I have, right? And Noriega was keeping them kind of as collateral. Carlos told me that he wasn't allowed to use them in his, not Carlos, Trujillo, the guy who owned the documents, told me that Noriega wasn't allowed to use them in his trial. And in that 60 minutes interview, the interviewer is with him in his office, sees these letters, and then it cuts to like back at the studio, and the interviewer says that he spoke with the administrator of the DEA at the time, John Cillian, in 1987, about the letters, and he said, "Hey, did you, like, what's up with these letters? Like, do you really value him that much?" And John Cillian said, "Yes, I'm like, I wouldn't take back a single word."
Wow.
He said, I would write the same thing again. So the interviewer said that, he was like, ultimately push is going to come to shove and Noriega is more than likely going to stand trial for like his crimes. And the interviewer was like, there's a really good chance that in his defense, he could call up the administrator of the DEA to back him up.
Sure.
Which is a really crazy thing to hear and it like you can find it on YouTube. You know what I mean? It's right there. And so those documents are like what I have and what I use to frame the narrative, like in the book. I like, even though the book is eye opening, there's nothing like, no like really crazy like new revelations in there. Like a lot of stuff you can find in books or like in documents or whatever. But those letters are like, they're just, you know what I mean? It says it so clearly that he was doing this like really important work for them, and then shit just hit the fan, and in around the time of the Iran Contra affair, which was just like a huge, what it really was just like a huge embarrassment for the American government, you know, in particular like Bush and Reagan. So
can you explain the Iran Contra affair?
yeah, I'll try like, yeah, I'll squeeze it in because it's like there's so much to it. But what it really was there was a U.S. Congress passed a trade embargo with Iran. There was like, you know, there was a hostage situation in Iran, like, you know, the movie Argo. That's like the situation. I think the exact same one. But either way, there was an embargo with Iran, and at the same time, there was a civil war in Nicaragua where the Sandinistas, the socialist sort of party, was winning. They overthrew the Somoza family, which were like a US backed, like US friendly dictatorship. And so the Sandinistas were like winning their civil war, and their opposition were the Contras, who the US sort of like backed them. You know, the CIA anyway just backed them, and they were providing them with, you know, money and weapons and stuff like that. But they had to do it sort of under the nose of Congress, and under the nose of the American public. So what they did was even though there was a trade embargo with Iran, they sold weapons to Iran, and then they used the profit from selling those weapons and gave it to the Contras and funded them. And then as well as that, they gave them like weapons and stuff too. But the Contra affair became like a scandal. Actually, I think it was 1986, and the guy who took the photo just died like last week. This guy Eugene Hasenfuth. A plane was shot down by Sandinistas in Nicaragua, and the pilot survived, and the pilot was like an American guy. And then this photographer took this photo of the crash and the guy, and it proved that there was like American involvement in the Nicaragua civil war. And they just like determined that, you know, obviously they determined like that it was the CIA and all that. So there was like a huge, you know, public like hearing. I'm not even sure what to call it, like a trial, like a huge trial in like the late 80s, and it was just like a massive deal. Like if anybody that's like 40 and up, or like 45 years old and and older, like you ask them like, do you remember the Iran Contra affair? They're gonna be like, oh my god, yeah, of course. Like it was everywhere. Like because they televised the trial, and wow. Just like it's like a huge almost like a nostalgia piece for a lot of people. It's like, oh yeah, that's like around this time, like the late 80s. Like it's just like, it's very, yeah, it's interesting. It's something that's like, I guess like has come into pop culture, but at the time was like a Watergate level scandal, like if not bigger.
Wow. I actually didn't know that much about it. I think I'd, read it in passing or had seen it a few times, but yeah, I didn't know that much about it. So again, it's just another one of those things. The book is super informative just in general. And it gets funny that an Irishman would know more about what's going on south of my country than I would. but
no, you guys know way more than I do. I've seen your posts. You guys get deep. You're great researchers.
Thank you. We mostly just read and react, but I'm always surprised.
I just take ketamine and go for it.
Okay, well, yeah, there you go. No, yeah, I'm always surprised by. I mean, like you said, a lot of the stuff that you covered is actually kind of public, or it doesn't take that much to do. Not to undermine your work, obviously, you did a lot. You put it together. It's great. And I've always felt the same way, where it's like all we're doing is sitting around and reading these documents. Why is no one else doing this? Like, what's going on? The truth is usually only one click away, and it just, I guess a lot of people just aren't interested. Or
I mean, hell, just the other day on Google Maps we found a woman transporting a kid and straight into the one of Epstein type buildings.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Was there anything in those papers that you didn't share in the book, or maybe you feel has kind of gone under the radar that was like super kind of surprising?
Not really. There in the book there's this one document, it's like a transcript that I don't know how Noriega got it, but Noriega had guys like in the White House and in the Pentagon and stuff that were like double agents. You know what I mean? Like he turned them in a way, and they
Wow.
would provide him with information. There was a document like in Trujillo's bundle that it was like a transcript from like a secret, not like a secret, but like a private meeting in Washington in like the early 1970s, and they were talking about like assassinating Noriega because like he like knew too much or whatever, and they didn't end up doing it, but it was like a point of discussion, and Noriega like knew that he like clearly he had the transcript, so basically like that, whatever, however private that meeting was, like he had a guy in the room that was so loyal to him that he would like send the transcript to him, and it's like dated and everything. It's in the book. It's like dated and everything. I think it's from like 1970 or 72 or something like that. But it's pretty nuts. I mean, that's like one of the ones that's not correspondence, but that one's like the most. That one's like the most like just like in your face, like direct, like like totally just like meddling with
Yeah.
like what's going on down there. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To the point of that they're like taking them out. So.
And it's probably not unique, right? I'm sure there are tons of spies there that are still there, right? I mean, especially now with how networked everyone is.
Or isn't there, guys? At this point, Costa Rica just entered into a deal with the U.S. that I guarantee you got strong-armed into doing.
Probably. But the other thing I found surprising too, speaking of his connections with administrations, was his relationship with Bush. The Bush thing I thought was super interesting. I actually don't know that much about Senior. Was it Senior who's the one he?
HW, yeah.
They didn't like each other at all. Bush Senior was the director of the CIA in like 1976, 77, and he just like hated Noriega. Like Noriega like really tried to rile him up, and like Noriega was very much like the instigator, but they hated each other so much to the point that in like 1988, just before Bush became president, Reagan like literally told, well, I don't say literally, supposedly told Noriega to like get out of Dodge. That like when Bush becomes president, like he's coming for you. So he hated him. He hated him, and I like obviously what do I know for a fact because I wasn't there, but like everybody sort of had like a story. They all had like a story that Noriega would either tell or that they saw with their own eyes, and they were just like, yeah, like if there's one guy that we were afraid of like all those years, like it was him.
Wow, it's pretty funny. Well, funny as it can get. But so just jumping back to your experience with it. So you go to Panama, you talk with Carlos. I know in the book you mention a few times that he may or may not have been exaggerating, even lying. How do you confront him, I guess, is just like, the blunt way to say it. Like, how do you sit there? This guy, he's killed people. He is, obviously extremely loyal to his friends. He's probably not gonna say anything, dirty about him, which I respect that. How do you sit there and listen to it? And I know in the book you express really wanting to hear the truth. How do you ask that question?
Yeah, I guess I picked and choose my battles, just because like he was scary when he wanted to be, and I mean I did like contest him as much as I could, and his sort of like method of response was always the same. Like he would sort of just double down on what he said in the first place. Like he never shifted like his narrative, or like what he never like meddled with like words. Like he always said things like sort of the same way like all the time, which made it good for taking notes, but hard to like discern if it's like fact or fiction. So it was sort of up to me. Like he would tell me something, and like if I couldn't just like corroborate it online, like I would have to go like a little bit further and like try to figure out like what he's talking about, or like if like what he said really happened. And if it lines up, then I put it in the book. If it doesn't, then I like, I either don't put it in the book or like I do, but I sort of like I make note that I'm like that I don't really believe it or whatever. Like there's a couple things in there that like rumors and stuff that I say that they're rumors because nobody can like verify it. But yeah, for the most part, I was surprised at how much I could corroborate that like his stories like did add up.
It's fair. When you're asking him these questions, was there anything you didn't put in that you did feel like was true, or something that he said that you kind of he was lying that you didn't, something you didn't put in the book, a little behind the scenes, maybe something that just didn't fit, or
yeah, the guy from Dexter that's like investigating him and couldn't prove it.
I don't know. There were things that like I just straight up couldn't put in the book. Like I say this in the book in the last chapter, but he started like telling a story about Mexico and like about like the Mexican government. And I was sitting there with my voice recorder, like only picking up a little bit. The only thing I understood was that he was talking about like the president at the time, AMLO. Like he just said like it was his government that this information relates to, not necessarily him. I don't know who in particular, but he started telling the story, and then he like froze up and he stopped, and he's like you got to he's like delete that right now. And I was like, why? And he was like, oh, if you put that in the book, like you're gonna get killed. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And he like made me delete it. He like watched me do it, and then I said it to like one of the other guys like helping me out with the book. I was like, oh yeah, he was kind of like leaning into the story, like, do you know what it could have been about? And he was like, absolutely not. But he's like, I'd love to know what it is. But Carlos like never.
Mexico.
You're so brave. You're so brave.
Well, it wasn't. No, it
Wait,
wasn't.
Who's the president of Mexico right now?
He wasn't talking about the president. He was talking about like the government, like whatever like the cabinet was, or like the government that they were overseeing. So I never knew even who specifically he was talking about. But there's been like a change in presidents. I'm not sure what her name is. It's a female president.
Scheinbaum.
But there's a lot of.
Yeah, we're familiar. We're real familiar.
Hey, why are you familiar?
Oh boy. Well, let's just say her rise to presidency is a very intriguing one, in which I believe the count now is like 30 of her opponents died mysteriously. And
listen, Doug. Listen, we don't. It's not that we don't like her because she's Jewish. We don't like her because she's a woman.
I didn't say either of those things. All I'm saying is a lot of her opponents, during her rise, just died mysteriously. And then on top of that, just recently, there's a really big moment where this mayor, I can't remember the city, he kept asking for help. He said the cartels are threatening my life. They're going to kill me. They killed him. And people were, not happy about it. They stormed the palace. It was, we called it a revolt.
Hell, we saw it on video. We saw him shoot the guy in the head on video.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
I heard about the assassination, but you can it's like out there. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, like the dude was literally just chilling there talking with his constituents, and then someone just comes up with a fucking pops in the head.
Yeah. That's crazy. I just did an interview the other day with this guy Young Grillo. He's like a narco journalist in Mexico, and he was. I mean, you should check out his like his YouTube. He's like one of the only like narco journalists that like English speaking narco journalists like in Mexico reporting on it from the inside. And he's been doing it since like 2001. So it's a strange spelling. It's Ioan. Is the first name, and then the last name is Grillo, Grillo, and like his YouTube, just like the shit that he does is crazy. But he's like right there, like in the center of it.
That's wild.
He's got a few books too.
Yeah, he's written 3 books. He's the man, but like holy shit, he's got like the biggest set of balls ever.
Yeah,
doing that.
Yeah, I would. We're a little scared most of the time just talking about these people. We're like, they don't seem to hesitate when it comes to taking someone out. So someone who's on the ground reporting, I'm always just like, hats off to you, dude. Even you asking that question about, what what Carlos might have been talking about when it came to the Mexican administration. Even you trying to ask further questions, I was like, dude, I don't know, Chief. I don't know if I'd be that brave. Just kidding.
No,
My curiosity calls me.
I mean, it's a good thing that I don't know and didn't put it in the book, because it scares me too. It's like, yeah, it's terrifying, the fact that how easy that shit like happens. But yeah, I mean, as long as you can back up sometimes as long as you can back up what you're saying, like, I don't know, it's, at least for a book, it makes for legitimacy.
For sure.
Were there any other moments like that?
I don't know, not really. Like, I felt like intimidated most of the time, but I was never really like super afraid or whatever. And I've had people like look at it, even like lawyers who have done work with like the agencies like in the past, like in some way, shape, or form. And it's, at the end of the day, like, it's considered a history book. Like, this shit happened so long ago that like most of the people I talk about are dead. But I think the book was timely, because like this, the sort of blueprint of it happens like everywhere. Like, how there's a coup, the strong man is picked and like funded and then built up, and then they're drunk with power and they have this crazy ego, but they're like doing what the US wants, so they're allowed to stay on the throne. But then they do something that pisses off the US, and then they get dethroned, and just, it happens all the time. So I mean, I'm happy I was able to do that. But it's a history book at the end of the day. So
yeah,
I don't know how many people are going to be like,
you said Noriega was talking about like Mexico's cabinet, right? That was what he was referring to, even only slightly.
It wasn't Noriega. It was Carlos.
Carlos. Yeah, he said he was referring to.
I don't know who it was. He was talking about someone in particular, but I don't know who, and I don't even know what it really was about. But he was beginning to tell a story, and then he was like, "Oh shit!" He's like, "Wait," and then he like made me delete the recording.
Now,
but I'm just using that.
Yeah. I heard recently about BlackRock trying to attain the Panama Canal as like an actual purchase. Do you think maybe the United States has potentially infiltrated Mexico's or Panama's cabinet in some way, shape, or form to potentially facilitate that purchase for BlackRock?
I think infiltrate's like a really strong word. I think influence is probably pretty accurate. But yeah, BlackRock have already, to my knowledge, they've already purchased the ports at either end of the canal, and they bought them from the Chinese, and they did so because like the Chinese own a shitload of property in Panama, like all over the world. Obviously, like they're slowly taking over the world and quietly. But in Panama, they owned a lot of like really big assets, and in the Panama Canal Treaty of 1977, which negotiated the handover of the canal from the US to Panama, it basically says, there's like a clause in it that if the canal is ever like a threat to American like national security, that the canal would transfer back into the hands of the US. So when Trump was like giving these speeches about the canal and stuff, that's sort of what he was like referring to, that the Chinese were a threat to American like national security. And in a way, like it is true. Like they can like sort of have a big influence in like, I guess, like the trade that passes through the canal to the US. And I don't know how. I'm not like an economics expert or a canal expert by any means, but owning the ports is like you're owning like both entry and exit. So surely there's a threat there to the US, but yeah, I mean, because I asked around when I was there, like to journalists and stuff, if they were worried of like more US intervention, and nobody was, to be completely honest. Like one journalist told me that he's like, honestly, he's like, even though the Canal Treaty said that like US troops had to leave the Canal Zone for good in the year 2000, American troops are like sort of still there. There's still like a US military base like I know that like American troops like give out like vaccinations to people and stuff like that. Like so, it's a really weird sort of. There's a weird balance between like people being really anti-America and then people just being like anti-Noriega, even though both of their angers like should be directed at the same thing, which is like the Monroe Doctrine. You know, it's like U.S. like intervention in Latin America. You know, it's yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah.
Have you seen
So-
the protests that have been happening outside of outside Scheinbaum's pretty much house at this point?
No, I haven't. I really am not like up to date with all of this stuff.
Oh, you haven't seen the protest? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been pretty violent over there. Like the police had to like create a huge barricade around Scheinbaum's like the Capitol Hill or whatever, and everyone's been pretty much tossing rocks, throwing Molotovs. It's been pretty insane over there.
Shit, well, I really got to check this out. I just like have been blind to it.
People have been spray painting swastikas and the Star of David with like an X through it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then like a Jewish witch written in Spanish.
They're not fans. They're not fans. We'll
They're
just
not
say
fans.
that. They are not fans, which, you know. The rumor is, and I say rumor the same way you used rumor, is that she is very much in bed with those cartels. She, you know, I mean, she openly defends them basically during whenever Trump gives a speech and he's like, yeah, we're going to bomb them. She was like, that's fascist. You can't do that. Going after cartels is fascist. I mean, it's I don't know where it'll lead to. I mean, obviously the U.S. focus is more on Venezuela at the moment, but it is, you know, it's fun to watch it. It's interesting.
It's interesting to see. It's interesting to see all this stuff happen. I mean, the Venezuela thing is really nuts. I think.
Do you know some extra details on it? Do you have any insiders for us?
No, I mean, I wish I knew. Well, part of me wishes I knew. Part of me, you know, happy that I don't, because I'm sure that there's so much more behind the scenes that like that's obvious, right? That there's more behind the scenes, but the fact that the fact that could like very well like actually happen, like boots on the ground, is really wild to me. Like it's like a real like intervention. Like we're seeing it so close to home. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty nuts. Like when I was in Panama last in September, I think like a few days before I'd gotten there, like U.S. warships had like passed through the canal, and like all the citizens were like talking about it, and they were like, these things are fucking massive. Like they're right there, like right off the coast of Venezuela. Like I can only imagine what those civilians are thinking right now. They're probably like fucking terrified.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sure.
Like it's crazy. It's crazy to watch unfold. But you know, Trump's saying that like the CIA were like doing operations in Venezuela too. Like there's some crazy shit. The fact that there's a bounty on Maduro's head, like I wonder where he is and like how he's managed to like stay alive. Like it's all. I mean, I'm dying to find out what happens, and then I bet, unfortunately, we're just gonna have to wait like a few years before any of those like nitty gritty truths to be revealed. Just sort of like always, like someone's gonna spill the beans eventually. But it's pretty wild. Like it's just pretty wild to consider that country that was, you know, top 5 richest country in the world for decades just crumbles to what it is now, and just like total chaos. It's nuts.
Now, do you think that potentially the United States government is gang stalking or performing psyops on Maduro to get him to act irrationally? That way they can have an excuse to invade Venezuela? Just a random question.
Our man is not a CIA insider. What do you...
I don't know. Just asking his opinion. He's a smart dude. Why
I know you. Yeah, of course.
He might have his own opinion on it, you know.
No, I'll give my opinion. I think that I don't know about like psyops or whatever, but I think I've watched a lot of like footage of Maduro, and like his press conferences and stuff. I'm sure you guys have as well. Like they're all televised. But what I do think is blaringly obvious is that he's got the Chinese in one ear and like Russia in the other ear, and the US is like right in front of him. You know what I mean? Like yelling in his face. So I think that guy has no fucking idea which way to turn. And I think he's losing his mind because like the US, you just can't win. You can't win. He can't win. You know what I mean? And he's getting funded by I know the Chinese sent them like those like amphibious tanks and stuff like that, and like they've got some like firepower behind them. But like even then, they're just like they're crazy outnumbered. Like it's not going to go down well. Like no wonder the guy's like going insane, and like being crazy. But as far as like a psyop, shit, like that'd be something. But I don't know enough about that.
We got psyoped. We've been psyoped before, believe it or not, via Twitter.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah,
we thought Nancy Mace was fucking trans because Twitter kept telling us she was trans, but it was an actual woman. So we're like, wow, she's like really, very womanly for an actual woman.
Oh, so you got psyoped?
Yeah, we got psyoped by fucking Twitter. We were not happy about it. I wasn't happy about it, at least.
God.
Do you see a lot of patterns? I mean, it seems like you do. It seems like you notice the patterns between what happened then versus what's happening now.
Yeah, there's just like all of it's definitely pattern recognition. They're just like saying like all the same things.
Yeah.
They're like same labels, like bounty on his head. It's and then also like Noriega acted the same way too. Like Noriega went crazy when after the indictment in 1988. Like there was a really famous speech that he had where like he whipped out his machete and he was like waving his machete like in front of a bunch of screaming people.
That's
and like
based.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. But it's like it's definitely cyclical. Like it's just it continues to happen. So there's a lot of similarities, but I just don't really know enough about Venezuela. Like obviously, oil is very much involved in this. That's super obvious. But yeah, I don't know enough about like Maduro even to know like sort of what the real similarities are between the two. Because I know Maduro assumed the throne from Hugo Chavez.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and he was pretty well liked, I think.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned China. I mean, it's a lot of what's happening right now in South America has to do with China's influence. And China, you're right, they bought a lot of strategic points in the canal. Even them being there, they can just sabotage it. It serves as a traffic point for the U.S. The U.S. gets a nice deal. I think it's like we get priority access and we don't pay as much going through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a threat. And then a lot of Chinese equipment has been moving to Venezuela. It's true. A lot of Chinese equipment, and not just military equipment, but floating oil rigs. China's been looking to kind of help them become sufficient away from an asset, sufficient away from the U.S., whatever.
Yep.
And the U.S. is not happy about it. And it was funny when I was reading your book because it didn't click at first. I was like, oh, this is a cool little timepiece. And then I was like, holy shit, man, this shit is happening like right now, like we just saw the exact same thing happen yesterday. And I couldn't help but wonder, like, what was Maduro an asset? Are some of these cartel members assets? You just have no idea. And you're right, we won't know until.
Yeah, you just have no idea. Unfortunately, until it like comes out.
No, 100%. I think your book is not only entertaining, but it's super valuable if you kind of want to get some insight on what takes place in Latin America. It's America's backyard. There's a lot of activity, and again, I was surprised by how many foreign agencies were, held a lot of influence. So as a last note, are you working on something else? And
I wish. I mean, I'm looking for the next. I'm looking for the next thing, but I'm not trying to like rush into it or anything like that.
Tease us a little bit. Give us a little something, please. Maybe something's caught your eye. Maybe a story or.
No, I wish. I mean, the the next thing that might come out so I'm from Ireland. There's a guy called Nicky Kelly who. He was in the 70s. He was falsely accused of being like a member of the IRA and like robbing a train. And what ended up happening was he like fled the country before they put him in prison, and he like went on the run around the world. And while he was gone, the other guys who were falsely accused got proven innocent. Wow. So Nicky thought it'd be okay to come back. But when he came back, they basically threw him in jail. They put him in front of like a terrorist court. and it was so corrupt that the judge actually fell asleep during the trial, and so they put him in like a terrorist prison, and he went on hunger strike for like 37 days or something crazy like that. But it's sort of like it's a story. It is a story about like corruption and that kind of thing, but it's very much related to Ireland and like how the government not necessarily is corrupt, but it's just so influenced by Britain, and we have a history of like being, because Britain used to like own Ireland. Ireland was like a part of Britain for hundreds of years, and we were like very much oppressed. So now we have our own like independent government, but we're still kind of like doing what Britain says. So I'm trying to like write a book that reflects that in a classy but also investigative way, using Nikki's story as like the anchor. So that's like a little bit of a tease, I guess. I mean, it'll probably be like a year before that comes out, but I'm hoping in the next like 3 or 4 months, like I get an opportunity to do something in Latin America similar to the Noriega thing, but different too. Like I like the agency stuff, but I'd be just as interested doing like something else. Like as long as the story's like awesome, that's what I care about most.
Yeah,
I love that.
I mean, I think something equally as interesting is what's happening in Ireland right now with all the immigration going on.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Twitter's like overblowing that quite a bit, but it's definitely an issue. I would say it's definitely an issue, but nowhere near as bad as like the UK, which is like, I mean, it's just like terrible there.
It's like one of the rape capitals of Europe at this point.
Oh my god.
That's what they're saying. I haven't been in a while, but fellas, I unfortunately have to hop to another call if
Yeah, of course. We appreciate you coming on.
Sorry.
Thank you for telling your story.
We'll be putting your social media and everything.
Yeah, tell the audience where they can find your book.
Oh yeah, you can just search it on Amazon, The Right Hand Man by Cillian Dunne. It'll be there, and then or you could just click the link to my Instagram page. It's in the bio. The link is in the bio there.
Awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate you again.
Cool.
And we hope to see
thank you so much for having me, guys.
We hope to see you in the future.
Great. Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
You too.
Bye.